The candlelight flickered between them, and as he leaned over the table, he kissed her, right in front of his wife. Her hands stayed still. Her heart did not race. Her face showed no surprise. This was supposed to be their anniversary dinner, 10 years of marriage, a night meant for memories and love. But instead of just the two of them, he had invited someone else, a young woman he called his colleague. He introduced her with a smile that looked too easy, too relaxed. Her instincts told her something was wrong the moment the woman sat down. Her dress was too fancy for a simple work dinner. Her smile was too familiar. Her husband laughed at everything the young woman said. He barely looked at his wife. He touched the other woman's hand across the table, thinking his wife wouldn't notice. But she saw everything. Her eyes missed nothing. The waiter brought wine. He ordered her favorite, but it tasted bitter tonight. The young woman talked about trips, about long hours at the office, and her husband nodded along. His wife stayed quiet. Her silence spoke more than words ever could. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. She already knew. Halfway through the meal, it happened. He leaned forward and kissed the young woman on the lips. It wasn't a quick mistake. It was full of care, like no one else was watching. But his wife was watching. Her eyes didn't leave them. Her hands didn't shake. No tears came. She lifted her wineglass slowly, looked them both in the eye, and gave a soft smile. "To new beginnings," she said calmly. They looked confused, maybe even nervous, but she just took a sip and placed her glass down with care. That was the moment something changed inside her. Not a scream, not a slap, just silence and something colder. Her husband acted like nothing was wrong. The young woman looked unsure but stayed close to him. His wife said nothing more. She sat there, eating slowly, drinking quietly, her face calm. But inside, she was far from calm. In that moment, she decided what to do next. Her heart had already been broken before this night, but now she was done pretending, done playing the role of the good wife. He thought he had won. He thought she would walk away, cry, or stay silent forever. But he had no idea. She wouldn't yell. She wouldn't beg. She would rise. And by the time he realized what she was planning, it would be too late. A week before the dinner, her hands moved through her husband's jacket as she did the laundry. In one of the pockets, her fingers found something small. It was a necklace, delicate, shiny, and not hers. Her heart paused for a moment. She turned the necklace over in her palm, staring at it in silence. It wasn't a gift. It wasn't familiar. It didn't belong to her. But she didn't ask any questions. She placed it back, folded the jacket, and smiled like nothing happened. That night, her mind stayed busy. Her eyes watched him closely. He laughed, talked about work, and said he had a long week ahead. But now, his words felt different. Her thoughts started connecting things she once ignored. She remembered late-night texts he never explained, sudden trips to the gym, and phone calls he took in the other room. She started paying attention. His gym visits didn't match the data on his Apple Watch. He told her he was tired from work, but his calendar showed something else. His stories were smooth, but small details kept changing. Instead of asking him about it, she stayed quiet. Her silence was her strength. Her phone became her tool. She began taking photos of the things she found. She saved copies of text messages and emails. She checked his call history when he forgot to lock his screen. Every new lie became another note in her private list. Her calm face never changed, but inside, something stronger was building. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. Instead, she planned. Her plan was slow and quiet, like a storm building far away. She didn't want him to see it coming. She wanted him to feel safe, loved, and sure of himself, until the very end. She booked a dinner for their 10th anniversary at the same restaurant where he once proposed. She picked the same table, even requested the same wine. She told him she had a surprise planned. He smiled and said he was excited. He had no idea she already knew everything. While he was asleep, she checked his emails. She forwarded hotel bookings and secret messages to herself. She watched him come and go, always careful, always calm. When he kissed her goodbye, she smiled and kissed him back. Her silence was not weakness, it was control. Every moment she waited made her stronger. Every lie he told made her colder. She didn't want him to confess. She didn't need his words anymore. She was ready for the night he thought was about love and celebration. She would give him a surprise, but not the kind he expected. Her revenge was already in motion, slow and steady, and he wouldn't see it coming. Her search began late one night, when her husband was asleep beside her. Her phone lit up the dark room as she opened social media and typed in the name she had seen on his messages. The woman's face appeared right away, young, pretty, full of bright smiles. Her pictures were open to the public, and every post told part of the story. Her eyes moved from photo to photo. The woman shared selfies, coffee pictures, and tagged places she had been. One photo was taken in a hotel room. Another showed a view from a beach. When she checked the dates, they matched the times her husband claimed to be on business trips. Her heart stayed calm, but her hands worked fast. Next, she opened LinkedIn. There, she learned more. The woman was 24 years old and worked as a marketing assistant at her husband's office. The job was new. She had joined the company a few months ago. That's when everything started to make sense. Their long work hours, the late-night phone calls, and the so-called team events her husband often mentioned. She kept digging. On Reddit, she found old posts made by the same woman. Some talked about her broken engagement. She had left her fiancé just a few weeks before the affair began. Her words were full of anger and confusion, but now they read like clues. The timelines fit too well. Her next step was saving the proof. She took screenshots of messages between her husband and the woman. She found emails with hotel bookings and flight tickets. One trip was to Miami, and it was clear they were going together. He had paid for everything. She kept copies of each receipt, every booking, and every message filled with lies. She printed it all. Page after page went into a folder she labeled for the divorce lawyer. But her plan was not just about ending the marriage. She didn't collect these papers just to walk away. This was only one part of something bigger. Her eyes stayed steady, her face calm, as she placed the last printed message into the folder. The folder grew thicker as days passed. She made sure to hide it well, far from where he would ever look. Every night she added more. Every day she watched him lie again. The woman he kissed at dinner was not just a name anymore. She was a part of the story now, a story that her husband had no idea was being written behind his back. But the ending, that would be hers to write, and it would be nothing like he expected. At home, her husband acted like everything was normal. He smiled in the mornings and kissed her on the cheek. He called her love and said kind words, but none of it felt real. He told her he had meetings late at night. He said he was working hard for their future, but she knew the truth. His hugs felt empty, and his words were soft lies. He looked her in the eyes and talked about how much he cared. Then he picked up his phone and smiled at messages he didn't show her. He said, "I can't wait for our anniversary dinner," and she smiled back. But inside, she felt nothing. She had stopped trusting his words long ago. Instead of fighting, she listened. Instead of crying, she watched. When he left the room, she opened his laptop. When he went to the shower, she checked his phone if he forgot to lock it. Sometimes he did, thinking she would never look. But she looked at everything. Each time he booked a hotel or flight, the email went to his inbox. She quietly forwarded them to her own. She saved every detail. Dates, times, names. He never noticed. He thought she believed him. That made it easier for her to keep going. She didn't ask where he was going. She didn't argue about the long nights. Instead, she placed small air tags inside his car and travel bag. They were hidden well, and he never found them. Now, she could see where he went and how long he stayed there. Sometimes, she watched the map on her phone as the little dot moved. It wasn't the gym like he said. It wasn't the office either. It was hotels and places he should not be. Still, she said nothing. She let him keep lying. He came home with stories of work stress and busy days. He touched her hand at dinner and said, "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." Her smile stayed the same. Her voice sounded sweet, but her mind was far ahead of him now. He thought he had control. He thought his lies were working. But every step he took gave her more power. Every false word became part of her plan. She was quiet, but she was not weak. She was watching everything. She was waiting. He kept living in his made-up world, not knowing she was building something real. She didn't need to ask questions anymore. She already had all the answers. The lies continued, and so did her plan. She knew she couldn't do everything alone. Her plan was growing, and she needed help, but not just from anyone. She needed people who had their own reasons to stand against her husband. Quietly, without telling anyone, she reached out to two people, his business partner and the young woman's ex-fiancé. Her husband's business partner had worked with him for years. On the outside, they looked like friends, but she had seen the way the partner rolled his eyes when her husband spoke. There was tension between them, something hidden behind polite smiles. She sent him a short message and asked if they could meet for coffee. He agreed. At the cafe, she brought a folder with copies of hotel bookings, messages, and photos. She didn't say much. She just showed him the proof. The partner sat in silence, flipping through the pages slowly. Then he leaned back and said, "I always knew he was a snake." She gave a small smile and waited. He said he had something too, documents that showed her husband had moved money, lied in reports, and broken the rules at work. If made public, they could destroy his business. She nodded and said one word, "Perfect." Next, she contacted the ex-fiancé of the other woman. She found his name from social media and sent a message explaining that she had information he might want to see. At first, he didn't answer, but after a few days, he agreed to meet. They sat at a small table in a quiet place. She showed him the same folder. At first, he looked confused. Then he saw the woman's face in the photos. He clenched his jaw, his hands tightening. "She told me he was just a friend," he muttered. His face turned red with anger. She waited for him to calm down. Then he looked at her and said, "What do you want me to do?" She told him she just needed him to speak the truth if the time came, to say what he knew, to back her up if needed. He agreed. He was hurt, and he wanted answers too. Together, they both wanted the truth to come out. She left both meetings feeling stronger. She now had people behind her, not just friends, but people who had also been lied to, people who had reason to fight back. Her husband still smiled at home. He still believed he was fooling everyone. But she now had more than just her own strength. She had proof, she had allies, and she had time. And soon, he would have none of it. The plan was careful and detailed. The anniversary dinner was booked at the same restaurant where he once proposed. It was meant to bring back sweet memories. But this time, it was part of something much colder. He had no idea what was waiting. She told him there would be a surprise. He smiled, thinking the evening would be about love. He didn't ask questions. He believed he was still in control. The young woman he was seeing got a message too. It sounded like a work opportunity, an important dinner arranged by the company. The invitation was written with polite words, explaining that he had recommended her. She quickly accepted, not suspecting anything. A message also went to a private investigator. He had been hired quietly weeks earlier. Instructions were simple: be at the restaurant, sit nearby, and bring a hidden camera. No mistakes. Everything needed to be recorded. The table was carefully chosen, a quiet corner, just like the night of the proposal. The same wine was requested. The lights were soft, music gentle, the mood almost romantic. Everything was set up to feel real, but it was only a stage. She wore the same dress from that special night. The meaning behind it had changed. Her face was calm, her hands steady, not a single sign of the storm beneath. The young woman arrived first, surprised but polite. Then he walked in, pretending not to be shocked. The smile on his face was thin. He sat down and said nothing about the other guest. Neither did she. Wine was poured. The conversation stayed light. No anger, no raised voices, only silence and smiles. Meanwhile, the investigator sat at a nearby table, recording it all. There were no mistakes. Every piece of the plan moved in place. No one saw it coming. The calm tone, the careful dress, the quiet table. Nothing had been chosen by accident. He believed he was winning. The woman still thought this was about her career, but the dinner wasn't meant for either of them. It was for the truth to come out. Everything was now in motion. There was no turning back. The fall had begun. The dinner started quietly. He sat across from his wife, with the young woman beside him. He looked calm and confident. He acted like everything was normal. He smiled, laughed, and talked without worry. He thought he was clever. He believed no one knew his secret. He touched the young woman's hand under the table. He leaned in to whisper jokes. The woman giggled, playing along. They shared looks and smiles, thinking they were safe. He didn't notice his wife watching. He didn't care. He believed she was still blind to the truth. The wine was poured. The food was served. The mood stayed calm. Then, with a small smile, his wife raised her glass. Her voice was steady. "To new beginnings," she said. Her eyes didn't blink. Her hand didn't shake. She looked right at him. He raised his glass, confused but smiling. The young woman followed. They clinked glasses. The sound was soft but sharp, like a warning. Then her hand reached into her bag. A plain envelope slid across the table. No words were spoken. She just looked at him and nodded once. He opened it slowly. Inside were pictures, his face with the young woman, screenshots of messages, full of lies, flight tickets with both their names, bank transfers to hotels and gifts. Every secret was there, printed in black and white. His smile faded. His hands stopped moving. His face turned pale. The young woman leaned over to look. Her eyes widened. She snatched a photo from his hand. Her expression changed. It was clear she had not seen this before. He tried to speak, but no words came out. The woman stared at him, then back at the wife. The truth hit both of them at the same time. The wife said nothing. She leaned back in her seat and took a slow sip of wine. Everything she needed to say was already on the table. Nothing more was needed. The dinner wasn't about celebration. It was about truth. He finally understood. The night had started with lies. But now, everything was clear, and it was only the beginning. At first he laughed. He looked at the papers in the envelope and shook his head like it was all a joke. He said it wasn't what it looked like. He tried to smile, hoping to make it all go away with his charm. But the smile didn't last. The more he read, the quieter he became. His face slowly changed. His eyes stopped moving, and the color drained from his skin. He looked at his wife, then at the young woman beside him. He didn't know what to say. The young woman leaned over to read the papers too. Her smile dropped the second she saw the messages. Then came the photos, then the emails. Her hand froze on one page, showing the flight ticket. Her name was there. She turned to him quickly. "You told me you weren't married," she said. Her voice was loud now. She grabbed another paper. "You said your divorce was final 2 years ago." She threw the pages on the table. He reached out to stop her, but she slapped his hand away. She stood up, her voice shaking with anger. Then came the slap, sharp and loud. It echoed through the restaurant. People turned to look, but she didn't care. Her eyes were full of rage. She had believed every word he said. Now she saw the truth. The wife stayed seated, calm and steady. She didn't flinch. She looked at them both and said, "I already filed for divorce. You'll be served tomorrow morning." Her voice was low but clear. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. She continued, "I also gave copies of everything to your business partner. He has the financial files. You know which ones." That made his eyes go wide again. He understood what that meant. He wasn't just losing his wife. He might lose everything else too. He tried to speak. He reached across the table, begging her to listen, but she picked up her glass instead. The young woman backed away. Her hands were shaking. She'd been lied to, just like the wife had, but she was only now realizing how deep it went. He stood up, looking around like he wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. The truth was out. The walls were closing in. The wife took one last sip of wine. Her face stayed calm. She had waited for this moment, and now it was here. The explosion had happened, not with shouting or tears, but with silence, facts, and a carefully planned truth. He tried to recover. His hands shook, and his voice was weak. He kept asking questions, hoping for a way out. He didn't know what to do next. His face was full of panic, and the calm look on her face made it worse. He thought he still had some control, but he was wrong. She placed her glass down and looked straight at him. Her words were quiet, but they hit hard. She told him she had one more surprise. He froze, waiting. She explained that his shares in the company were no longer his. A third party had bought them weeks ago. At first, he didn't understand. Then it hit him. Someone else owned his part of the business. She had arranged everything without using her name. He had no clue it was her behind the deal. He leaned forward and said it wasn't possible. He said she couldn't do that. But she smiled and calmly told him it was done, legal, and complete. The deal was clean. The shares were gone. His power in the company was gone too. Before he could stand up, she added something else. Their joint bank accounts were frozen. Not emptied, just locked down. Every card, every dollar, out of his reach. She had done it through the court, all legal. The paperwork had been filed before dinner. His name meant nothing now. He lost it. His face turned red. He shouted, calling her names. The young woman stepped away from the table. She didn't want to be part of it anymore. People started watching again. The calm dinner had turned into a scene. Then 2 security guards walked over. The restaurant manager followed. They asked him to lower his voice. He kept yelling. They warned him again. He refused to leave, still shouting about his money, his shares, his life. The guards took him by the arms and led him out. He kept yelling until the door shut behind him. His voice faded away. She stayed at the table, still sitting tall. She picked up her wine and took a sip. The noise was gone. The air felt lighter. The mess was over. She looked around the room. People stared, but she didn't care. For the first time in years, she felt free. She had planned every step, and now the final piece had fallen into place. The night was hers, and she had ended it on her own terms. Weeks passed. Life became quiet again. She now lived in a small but beautiful apartment. The space felt calm. No shouting, no lies, just peace. She sat by the window most mornings with coffee in hand, listening to soft music and watching the light fill the room. One day, a letter came in the mail. It was a thank you card from the mistress's ex-fiancé. His words were short, but honest. He thanked her for showing him the truth. He wrote that it saved him from a future filled with lies. She smiled at the card and placed it in a drawer, feeling a little less alone in her pain. Her lawyer called a few days later. The voice on the phone sounded happy. The divorce was moving forward smoothly. Everything was going her way. Her husband's cheating, the financial records, and his reckless actions had all worked against him. The court saw the truth. She would get what she deserved. Her ex-husband wasn't doing so well. He lost his job. The company didn't want the drama or risk. On top of that, the financial fraud was under investigation. Federal agents were now looking into his past deals. His name, once respected, was now tied to scandal. The young woman who once sat by his side left him too. She disappeared when things got hard, just like he once did to his wife. In her apartment, she opened her laptop one night. A folder sat on the screen. It was named Revenge File. Inside were photos, messages, and papers, all the proof she had collected. The folder had once been her shield, her weapon, her strength, but now she didn't need it. She clicked it once, then hit delete. The screen asked, "Are you sure?" She clicked yes. The folder vanished. She leaned back in her chair. The smile on her face was small, but real. It had been a long time since she felt that light. The weight was gone. The past was behind her. Her plan was done. Her peace had begun. Do you think she went too far with her plan? Or did her husband get exactly what he deserved? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new one.